Hello and welcome to Charger Chat. Today we are joined by PJ and ready to talk about all of the campus news in the month of February. As always, it is your hostess with the mostest, Kiana Quinonez. Let's chat. In this month's issue of the Charger Bulletin, staff writers dipped into the topics of transfer student struggles, the university's gender expression policy, and an empowering night of domestic violence awareness. So let's get started. The Bulletin's top story for this week was about transfer students and their fight to graduate on time despite the university's credit policy. Contributing staff writer Marissa Rosado gave insight to readers about how these students see a delay in getting a degree. Here are the facts. Of the 300 students that transfer to the university every semester, a majority of them have either been held back or had to repeat courses they previously took. The average transfer student loses about 13 credits when enrolling in a new college, and the registrar's office has explicitly stated they do not make the rules in regards to outside credits, prompting transfer students to feel they do not receive enough assistance from the registrar. Sophomore Tatiana Bernal has expressed her personal struggles, saying, quote, "I hate the fact that I was almost done and they basically made me start all over again," end quote. Office clerk Carol Kane has defended the registrar, saying, quote, "Our goal is to try and respond to the students in the order they arrived," end quote. So could the university work harder in accommodating students?
Overall, I definitely think the answer is yes, because I can see this point where they're coming from, dealing with having gone through these classes before and actually learning what they need to know, and then simply being forced to retake something they already know is a waste of time and honestly a waste of money if a student has already paid for something like that.
Definitely. And it's not like we're a community college or we have in-state tuition. So it's very expensive for students to start off somewhere and then try to find a home at UNH, and they end up spending, 4 or 5 extra years just studying here.
Definitely. 'Cause I see students that go through this with going to community colleges. Mm-hmm. They go for 2 years and then 2 years to a private university like this. And the goal is to have those 4 years, not to be here for 6 years. People want to get an education, but not go through having to spend all this time and all this money. And I understand where they're coming from, because if you have already learned what you need to know, there really shouldn't be a reason to do it again.
Exactly. And I know I struggled. I had to retake a math course over the summer, and they were very strict on the places that I could take these courses. And I had to take even more money out of pocket to pay for that course, as opposed to taking it at another maybe community college where it would have been cheaper for me. So it's really tough because, the idea is that you want to help students and try to, get them the best education possible, but in a way they're being held back, like to a really extreme degree.
Helping students would be probably the best thing for the registrar, because we go through these classes, again, to learn. So if we had the registrar be a little more connected with these schools that we're coming from, like say community college or another institution that had a very similar class, if we got them to be more involved with how these transfer classes and the points carry over, it would definitely help out the student, which is the main goal of getting a student to graduate.
Definitely. Transfer students deserve the same education privileges as everyone else, and hopefully the university recognizes that in the upcoming years. They already suffer enough with the lack of parking. Coming up, we look at the Night of Domestic Violence Awareness and the impact it had on the campus community. The Victimology Club held an event called The Faces of Domestic Violence on January 30th in Bucknell Theater. The event was held to educate students on the importance of recognizing domestic violence and that it can happen to anyone. Here's what went down that night. The presentation started with a video reenactment of a famous domestic violence case, Thurman versus the City of Torrington, in which Tracy Thurman became the first woman to sue her town for the violation of her human rights. Members of the Victimology Club read transcripts of real domestic violence stories to show the prevalence of it in today's society. The club ended the night by showing the warning signs of abuse and how acknowledging the problem when it starts is important. Victimology Club Vice President stated that the goal of the event was to, quote, exemplify that domestic violence does not discriminate against race, sexual orientation, religion, gender, or age, end quote. Spear also said that, quote, this is an important topic for a college campus, especially one rooted in criminal justice, because it informs the students and faculty about the truth of domestic violence and that it impacts everyone, end quote. So, PJ, what impact did the event ultimately have on students?
I think overall anything that educates students, and be it anyone, on the problem of domestic violence is overly important and positive, because we have people out on campus that don't really know what it looks like and how serious a problem is until they know the warning signs line up with something like domestic violence. So being able to educate students on what it is and how prevalent it is really in lives is very key to stomping it out and getting rid of it.
Yeah, I spoke to students at the show, and a response that I got from a lot of them was that they didn't know there were so many different forms of domestic violence and of abuse, and that watching it made them look at relationships differently, and it made them really want to pay more attention to the way that they're treated by other people. So I think it was like really good in educating people and showing them that, you know, domestic violence isn't just like physical abuse. It can be emotional, it can be mental, it can be financial. And that was a main topic of a lot of the stories. It was a variety of people, different races, different genders, who experience different forms of abuse.
That's the most important thing, because you have many students out there thinking, oh, that couldn't happen to me because I'm blank, because I'm this, because I'm that. And it really is a problem across the board, regardless of where you come from, who you are, and even the people that you love. Really, if you can find people out there that may be in a situation of domestic violence or abuse, and they will think, well, that's not true. They didn't do this, they didn't do that. But with the large spectrum of what it really can be, people are done being silent. You need to show people that silence is complacency, and that being able to finally break out of that is very important. And that's how people learn to break out of it, by learning what it is and how it can be stopped.
Definitely, yeah. A college campus really is the best place to hold an event like this, and the ability to educate students on a serious issue like domestic violence truly takes talent. Hopefully we see more events like this from the Victimology Club in the future. For our last topic, we'll be talking about new gender expression policy and the joy it has brought students. As of the new 2018 semester, the University of New Haven has announced their plan to become gender inclusive, allowing students to identify themselves by their preferred names and genders on their ID cards and attendance rosters. This is a radical change to the system, since in recent years, the university has only recognized students by their legal given name and gender. Here are some of the facts. This change has come after the abundance of students that have had to contact their professors and other official university personnel with explaining their personal name preference. This policy provides a guide and a list of terms to help people understand the issue of nonconformity. The only way this policy does not apply is through legal documents needed by the university, such as financial aid forms and diplomas. Associate Dean of Students Rick Baker said, quote, "Despite what's happening nationally, the university tries to be as inclusive as possible," end quote. Freshman student Kai DeBay stated that, quote, "It's really important that your first impression is a correct impression," end quote. So, PJ, in what ways can the university further educate students about transgender issues and inclusivity?
I think that some good ways to get it done would be by introducing more of these programs that help people show who they really are. College is the time where you learn who you really are and learn that going with the flow isn't what life is about. It's becoming your own person. So things like this, changing it so you can be who you are and tell other people this is the person that I am, is very important. I find it great that everyone is able to finally show, you know, with the name, this is who I am, and you can finally be the person you are. I think that if they had more inclusivity, which they're working towards, if you had more events describing what this is, because I know many people could be confused by changing names like that. If you had an event possibly explaining the reason behind it, then you would have more people on board and more people agreeing with the inclusivity that we're working towards.
Yeah, and the university, I mean, especially in my time here, has definitely taken a lot of steps toward inclusivity. I know that when I first heard about gender neutral housing, I thought that was awesome. And I know a lot of people who really take advantage of that because, you know, they're being true to themselves and living with people that they want to live with. And somebody in my job, actually over the winter break, I got an email that somebody in my job changed their name, and who, you know, on campus. I thought that was amazing. Like, they finally had the opportunity to change their name because of this new policy. So it's exciting. Yeah.
Making a place like college more accepting to changes, because college is all about change and learning more about yourself. Being able to make it easier for people to finally be themselves is important. Because if you know someone and you already appreciate having them around, then you won't have any kind of issue with that, because it's who they are. And I think it's great that with the farther we get on in the years, we can finally show that inclusivity is what college is all about.
Yeah, and I think for students who, you know, may be questioning their identity, and students who aren't aware of questioning identity, like it's not something that they're familiar with from back home. Stuff like this is important because it naturally shows them the environment, and it gives us a safe space that doesn't have tolerance for intolerance, essentially.
It makes students much more comfortable.
Definitely.
To finally explain how they've been feeling.
This is a huge change from the university, and we're definitely moving towards having a more inclusive campus in which everyone feels accepted and understood. This new policy is currently active on the student domain website, My Charger, and can be used at any time. That's all we have for today, and I hope to see you guys next week on our next episode. Look out for university news. I am your host, Kiana Quinonez, and stay chatty, Chargers.